Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome again to God's Unchanging Word in this edition of News, Nuggets, and Insights. Today is February the 24th, our final edition for the month of February. Today is going to be a little lighter than our usual. We've covered some pretty heavy subjects with all the news that's been going on around the world, a lot of the problems. What we thought we'd do today is we're going to lighten it just a little bit and spend a lot of time bringing you up to date on a lot of the information as far as the church growth, outreach, and developments going as we get ready to the spring holy days. But I do have two stories I want to bring to you them. One of them is gender association. Now, I'm going to try to do this with a straight face, but it's funny, and I got to tell you, it's pathetic. The world is in an uproar on what to call somebody rather than just male or female. Now, this is literally what I'm showing you here. What you're going to have up on the screen is what's going on in Europe. It's the issue of gender association, and they're teaching doctors now that they can no longer call women mothers because it's not inclusive. Now this is real. I'm not making this up. Actually, I shouldn't say that, but I will. Audrey sent this to me, and when I got it, I'm sitting there just laughing because it's so pathetic. It really is pathetic, but it shows you how far mankind is degenerating as a society. So let me read you what they're going on to re-educate doctors in a booklet in England. It says, note to the medical personnel not to call the person who just delivered a baby expectant mothers because it's not inclusive to biological women who identify as men. What did I just read you? I can't call them the expectant mother because the person who's in the bed might think she's a man who just delivered a baby. All right, did you get that? All right, you with me? Let's go. The trade union representing the NHS doctors claim that a large majority of people that have been pregnant or have given birth identify as women, well, naturally, but said a change to remove the word mother is necessary because biological women who think they are men can get pregnant. All right. I got to read that again. Because biological women, she's a woman. All right? She's a woman. And she thinks she's a man. Well, she can get pregnant. She can get pregnant because she's a woman. That's the way God designed you. All right? So let's go on. Doctors should also avoid describing babies as born man or born woman because those terms oversimplify a complex subject. Neither should they say biological male or biologically female for the same reasons. So the Daily Mail reported all of that, and instead, now this is where I'll just stop. It's a long article, but I'll stop it here. Instead, they should say the individual was assigned or designated male or female at birth. So the point is, when you fill out your application, you go to school, you go to a job, what were you assigned as your gender when you were born? I'm not making this up. This is actually real. Now, for those who still may be confused about gender association, the Bible put it to rest, this entirely complex, I know I'm making fun because it is silly, this entirely complex situation that you can't call male or female. God put it to rest really quick. It's in the book of Genesis. All right, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the seas and the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and every other creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. There you go. Really complex, isn't it? Whenever mankind tries to rethink God, that he's got a better process than what God created, it turns into an absolute mess. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Case closed. Case closed. Now, I went online looking, let's see how many gender associations do we have. Do you realize they're up to about 78 gender associations? 78 gender associations. So I don't know how long the alphabet's going to be with the LGBTQ, and they're going to have the MOUSE at the end of it and everything else that goes along with it. God put it to rest at the creation. He said he created a male and he created them female. So you may have 78 gender associations. You have two correct the way God created. The rest is a perversion of man's thinking to try to do away with God. So anyway, I wanted to bring that out, and I wanted to bring the scripture out just in case there's anybody who sees this program is still confused about what to call somebody. All right, going on. We want to do something from time to time, and we want your help, is send us information. If there's something going on in your country or in your area that we don't know about, and it's something we can report, we'd like to bring it to you. Well, this today came in from one of the brethren from Canada, Harold Wright, and this is dealing with Canada's anti-Islamophobia motion provides divisiveness. Now, what this is telling us, and the reason I'm bringing it out here, because Canada has quite often led the way in the degeneration of moral issues in the West, whereas England has in the East and in Europe. So here's something going on now that could hurt conservative Christians as we go forward. This is a bill that's going to be brought for them to decide, like in our House or our Senate, to decide on passing this bill against what they would call Islamophobia. All right, so here's what it says. The motion of Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination has sparked fierce debate in Canada's parliament and online as rumors spread that the government would soon make criticizing Islam illegal. Well, that's a far-reaching statement. And part of the debate is, what is criticizing Islam? If we gave a sermon message and we said that Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation, do you realize what I just did? They will take as criticizing Islam as being a non-real religion and a non-God. So what happens then? Am I going to be brought before the courts because I'm criticizing Islam, because I don't accept that faith, that it's a false pagan religion that has nothing to do with God or Jesus Christ? Think about that. All right, going on. Let me go a little bit further. By the way, the UN has been trying to pass that same kind of law for a long time. All right, so now, the motion proposed by Liberal Minister of Parliament, I'm not sure the exact pronunciation of the name is Ira Khalid, back in early December, calls on the government to recognize the need to quell increasing public climate of hate and fear and to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. That's pretty far-reaching. How do you tell someone, don't be afraid of a religion has vowed to come over here and destroy you and cut off your heads and kill your children unless you change and believe what they believe? How do you stop someone from doing that? And how do you stop someone who calls that type of emotion a rhetoric, which is a reality to that preferred form of religion? I know not all Muslims are that way, but I'm certainly, if 2 or 3% is, that means millions of them are. And how do you stop that form of emotion without speaking out against it? And if there's a law that says you can't speak out against it, how will you stop it? So you can see why there's a lot of debate going on. And I wanted to bring this out and thank Harold for sending it in from Canada, is because what usually happens in Canada at a certain period of time later seems to wind up showing up in America at the same time. So this is something we all need to be aware of, because the Muslim movement will not stop, and it will not stop till Jesus Christ returns. So we need to talk about that in the future as we go forward to prepare for what's coming. All right, so now, that's pretty much all the news we want to share with you today as far as that in, because we got a lot of information that we're in the middle of, that we've been putting out. So I'd like to kind of bring everybody together and put us all on the same page. This week, the newsletter is going out, and it's a preparation to get us in a thought and a process for the holy days. And I brought this little picture up here. I really thought it was cute. So if you could kind of bring that back up on the screen, is that God says, let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. So here's a cat looking at this cat, and he's got this little claw going up, and he sees himself as this mighty lion. And so it reminded me of sometimes of the way we think of ourselves. We actually don't always see ourselves the way God sees us. So what I was bringing out is that we really want to make this time of the Spring Holy Days special and bring out the most that God wants for us, to bring it out and to apply it to our lives. So I brought that out because I want everyone, as I was going down memory lane as I do each year around the Spring Holy Days, I wanted everyone to begin to think about what you can do to make this year the most special holy day, Passover you've ever had, and return to that first love, that love when you were baptized and it was the very first Passover that you ever took. So if you're not on the newsletter, by all means, write in, get on the newsletter, and we'll send that to you. And that's going out this week, so you'll probably have it in the mailbox, some of you as early as tomorrow, and maybe some as early as the beginning of next week. Excuse me. We're also sending out the next card offering The Death of Our Moral Compass. That is the March DVD that will go out. I'll bring this back up a little bit later. And you'll have that card and you can send it in. Or you can go online and you can order it and bring it sent right to you. Now, the February offering DVD was Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and we focused around 2 Chronicles chapter 20. That DVD will hit the mail in a little over a week, all right, a little bit over a week. We're actually going to be sending out 2 DVDs, so be on the lookout for that. So actually when I started doing that DVD, it was a Bible study style. It's drawn a lot of attention and excitement, so actually I couldn't get it all in one DVD, so it's actually going to turn into a 3-part sermon series, Bible study sermon series. Part 2 is going to follow a few weeks after that. It's Jehoshaphat, Part 2, and is titling it Changing the Culture of a Nation. And I actually got into that because of the subject matter we've been covering about our nation and how people actually think about God today, or they're not thinking about God today. And if we're going to restore our nation, as Donald Trump says, and then the mantra that goes across the nation to make our nation great again, it has to start with the thinking of the way people actually think. So that means we're going to have to reintroduce God to a nation who has removed him. And believe it or not, God gives us how that's done in the book of 2 Chronicles. So we're going to cover that in part 2. And then we'll do the final one, part 3, which I think is an exceptional story that God's tied in here about deception. Because you see, at the end time, God tells us if we don't have a love for the truth, God's going to allow us to believe a lie. So the parallel of the story of Jehoshaphat, as we did in part 1, and we will do in part 2 and part 3, it's actually a story for our time toward the end. So if you haven't ordered your DVD yet, please do so, and it'll go out with their first one in about a week, a little over a week. We also mailed out this week the final installment of Today, If You Hear His Voice, Part 4. It's called The Duality of Events. It's Chapter 4. If you include the intro, it's a 5-part series that's with a lot of information, and we've received a lot of positive feedback. The final installment of that series just went out, and it should be in your mail. By the time you get this, you might even have it. Last week we did something different in our news nuggets and insights because of the information we were pulling out in 2 Chronicles with King Jehoshaphat. We did an entire 60-minute program on our judicial system and has it gone rogue, and we actually just put it in the mail already. So it's not one you're going to see advertised basically anywhere. So if you have not got it yet, by all means, write in or call in and leave a message, and we'll send that to you. It's actually in the mail. It's a full 1-hour series, and we will be putting this online also, so you can watch it online and you can download it and share it with your friends. I was actually up in Tonganoxie, Kansas last week, and had a great turnout. And I want to thank the Heartland Church of God for all they did to make this very successful. The people who got on the phones, And there was as many as, I believe, 4 different groups who had driven into the Tonganoxie area to be together. We had a great Sabbath. We did a Bible study where they played the Constitutional Christian, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. And then I did the sermon with King Jehoshaphat in chapter 20. And then we sat around with fellowship and we talked for a long, long time. So we had a great time. So what I'm bringing out here is that to our joy, evidently the News Nuggets and Insights are reaching people, because I had quite a number of people came up to me and said, man, I watched that program, and how informed, and thanked us for the information that we brought out in it. And so you can get it. It'll be online. In fact, it's online because we actually put it up last week. You can actually go to it. The title of that sermon is The Constitution, Freedom, and the Courts. So you can actually go online and you can look up last week's News Nuggets and Insights. I believe it was the 18th, February the 18th, and you can click on that link and you can watch The Constitution, Freedom, and the Courts. And if you need a sermon message, you can use this for your sermons. In fact, one of the people that wrote in from Canada is planning on doing that in the next Sabbath or two, to play that. And it gives you a lot of insights how the courts have gone rogue and are bypassing the Constitution and the freedoms that God's given you and I. It's something we all need to be aware of that's going in. All right, going on. The March DVD that's going out this month with the newsletter, we just mentioned it, is The Death of Our Moral Compass. All right, the Constitutional Christian. I'm going to take a few minutes here before we begin to wrap up the program and talk a little bit about the Constitutional Christian. It has been mailed, and if you don't have your copy by now, let us know, because you should have your copy of the Constitutional Christian. Last week when I was in the Heartland Church of God, I asked them to play this. It was a request. I asked if we could use this for their Bible study, and I did that because I wanted to see the reaction and get a little bit of the feel of an audience that I don't meet with on a weekly basis. And they reacted the same way as I've played this before to other audiences. There was a tremendous amount of response, uplifting. And I let them know that I had brought extra copies, and I thought I had plenty enough copies, that if they needed anything extra, to take them, because I didn't want to bring them back home, make sure I gave them all away. Well, immediately I ran out of copies. People were coming up and saying, can I get 5 copies? I need 10 copies. And so when a person watches this DVD, the reaction that comes to mind, and this is we've been working toward for a long, long time, the reaction is, I need to show this to. And then they start thinking about all the people they want to show this to or give this to. And I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I have never been anywhere where people say, can I come get 5 copies of that, when it was over. So what it's done now is it inspires a hope within an individual, and they want to take that joy and bring it with them to share with a neighbor, with a friend, somebody else in another church group, and they want to be able to share that with everybody that they can. So that's the goal we've been looking at for a long time, to create a product that a person can take and say, hey, listen, I want you to see this. All right, so a couple years ago, we began what's called Project Go, which is called Grassroots Outreach. So this is going to be another tool that's going to go toward the grassroots outreach. So what I'm showing you here is that we have the DVD, which you can get, and by the way, today, you'll be able to go online and you can actually watch the Constitutional Christian online. You can download it, you can make copies of it, and give out as many as you could possibly give out to everybody you know. All right, now, if you want to begin to promote it like a commercial level to another pastor group, or to maybe a civic organization, maybe a conservative Christian business luncheon like we've done here in New Orleans, what we're doing is we're creating these covers. It's a promotional case that you can put the DVD in that tells a little bit about it. It's very professional looking, and I think that people are going to really appreciate when you give that to them. Here's our problem at home. We can make these because we do this all in-house. We can't afford to ship them and make them and ship them. So I'm going to show again next month, because we haven't rolled it out yet to the general public. Everything we've done basically has been sent to church people who are familiar with the truth. We're modifying it a little bit. We're going to put an intro on it, and we're going to put a closing into it, which is going to bring them to the website. All right, and the website is going to be theconstitutionalchristian.org. So they can't forget, if they saw the special, they'll remember exactly where to go. When they go to theconstitutionalchristian.org, you'll see it is sponsored by the church. That rollout is going to bring them what they can do to help restore God back to America. And from that, we'll link them to the website, to the church, to God's unchanging word. So we'll be ready, hopefully within the month. We'll have all of that ready. And I'll tell you more about it in the quarterly that'll come out next month. So be on the lookout. But what I hope you've done is, if you follow through in the last couple of years, you've been building an arsenal of people to contact with the truth as each new tool comes out for you to use. One of the things that we're excited about, this time I've actually got a minister actually called me up and saying, listen, when you're ready to put it on TV, I'd like to sponsor it in my area. You ready for that? He wants to put it on TV in a small community he lives in, that he says, I can get it on for about $80, and I can play that in my area. So there's opportunities that God's opening for us and for you. And so we could put that information on, and then when they know it's in their area, somebody writes in, we direct them to that contact or that church. So what we've been developing and laying the foundation for in the last couple of years now is beginning to show fruit. So bear with that, tell your friends, and be ready for the quarterly, and we'll tell you more about that as we go. All right, as we bring this to a close, I want to bring out some information. It's called the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I honestly didn't even know it was there. It's actually been in the building stages now for the last 5 years. They're supposed to be ready this fall, and I talked to Dean Powery, of the general manager for the local WHNO TV here, and when he was up there, and he said, man, I don't know how they're going to have it ready, but he said they say they will. So what I'm going to do now is we want to close our program out today. We got a video. It's about 5.5 minutes, 6 minutes, that gives you the artist's rendition, their promotion, of what the museum is going to look like when it's finished this coming year. All right, so now if we're ready, let's play that, and then we'll come back and wrap the program up for today. piece of work. 430,000 square feet, all those levels. Every year people say, Tom, why don't we have one feast site? Well, most of the time we really can't because people just can't go to one location. Boy, but if we ever got to have one feast site, I know where I'd like to hold it. Wouldn't that be great? It's going to be absolutely beautiful. I started thinking, just let your mind wander, if mankind can do this, just imagine what God could do in the millennial reign in Jerusalem when everybody goes there. Can you imagine the museum God can put together that you and I could be a part of, looking at the history, the true history, the way it actually took place day by day for 6,000 years. What an incredible time that's going to be. We wanted to end this program with something a little more upbeat today. I'd never seen this before. I don't know if you did. So you can go online to the Museum of the Bible. You'll read a little bit more about it. And as time goes on, we'll keep you posted as it develops. Well, that's it for today. That's our news nuggets and insights. As you can see, God's blessed us with a lot of things going on right now, a lot of information going out, tools are being developed, and we're getting ready for the spring holy days. Thank you for watching God's Unchanging Word, News Nuggets and Insight. And until next week, God be with you.